Let's begin our gathering. Some Nigerians have been slammed with visa restrictions by the United States of America for intimidating voters through threats and physical violence, manipulation of election results, and any other activity that run contrary to democratic tenets during the recently held general election. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said in a statement, according to him, United States is committed to supporting and advancing democracy in Nigeria and around the world. He, however, clarified that the restrictions are specific to certain individuals and are not directed at the Nigerian people or the government of Nigeria as a whole. Now, while Blinken did not disclose the names of those on the visa ban list, such people, if they apply for America visa, could be refused, or if they already have valid visas, could be denied entry to the U.S. The European Union, through the European Union Election Observation Mission, had also raised concern over the conduct of some persons and institutions during the polls. In a statement by the chief observer, Barry Andrews, 2 days after the March 18 governorship and State House of Assembly polls, said Nigerians hungered for democracy and were ready to be involved in the country's democracy, but that the appetite was lost due to failures by the political elite and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Recall that the presidential and National Assembly elections were held on February 25, in which the candidates of the All Progressive Congress, APC, Bola Tinubu, was declared the president-elect, while the governorship and State House of Assembly elections followed on March 18. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, and that of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, are currently in court challenging the election of Tinubu, while the president-elect is scheduled for inauguration on May 29, when the tenure of the incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari lapses. To discuss the visa ban, I am joined virtually by Ezewuike, Global Affairs Analyst. He joins us from Brussels, Belgium. Good to see you, sir. I think you're muted. If you can unmute, sir.
No, I'm not muted.
Okay, I can hear you now. I didn't hear you before. Good to see you again.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I also have Ambassador Olusiji Aina. He's a board member at the U.S.-Africa Trade Council. He joins us from Abuja. Thanks for giving us your time as well.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Let's start with you, actually. Does this decision by the U.S. government come to you as a surprise?
Not exactly, because again, you will recall that the international communities were invited into the country to observe the election. And as part of the treaties that we signed, as a country, we expect to abide by certain principles and then also doctrines, and rules of engagement in a democratic setting. So it doesn't come to me as a surprise. It's just one of the ways to curtail all of these excesses of, politicians and then who perhaps are interested, in getting to power by all possible means. So basically, it's normal. There's nothing bad about it.
Mr. Wike, I want to take a little snippet from the statement. It says the visa restriction reflects the continued commitment of the United States to support Nigeria's aspiration to strengthen democracy and the rule of law. I'm quoting that because I want to ask you, how does this ban, in real term, advance the course of democracy?
Just like Ambassador Aina said, this is to be expected. As a matter of fact, in a democratic setting, in the new world order, this is actually the basic thing that has to be done. And so this shouldn't come to anybody as a surprise. As a matter of fact, in some quarters, it is actually expected that America should have done much more than this. For instance, if you consider all the circumstances leading to the election itself, and then on the election day, and then post-election, troubles that we saw, the circumstances surrounding the declaration of the president-elect, and afterwards, some other issues that have emerged. Some would actually argue that America should have taken a stronger stand if indeed they mean business when they say, yes, they want to support the cause of democracy in Nigeria. And again, this is right at the heart of American foreign policy, where, issues of developing democracy, that is outside the shores of the United States is not seen as a problem far from their bed, because, their interpretation of national interest is a really broad one, which includes peace in other regions of the world being part of what America should support. So yes, too little, maybe too late.
Let me paraphrase the question about the ban again. Over time, when they issue these statements, they don't give specific names. So Nigerians cannot say, okay, yes, I know this man was banned because of his activities during the elections, or I know that man was banned. So not knowing who these individuals are, if you look at it extensively, how in real terms can Nigerians appreciate the essence of the ban in its furtherance of democracy?
Well, there are issues around, well, not issues, I would say concern about, the legal aspect of naming and shaming. You will understand that, this was a one-sided affair in terms of America basing their decision on intelligence gathering, but also don't forget that they have a representation in Nigeria. Now, I do not imagine that the individuals fingered and, finally, punished in this manner by means of a visa restriction. I imagine that there was never a time when they were invited, to have a tete-a-tete where they had the opportunity to present their side of the stories, like you will find in a court of law. So America coming out to name and shame them, well, even though it is desirable, it does have, its own legal ramification, and so it is not done now because of that reason. But then I believe that Nigerians know the people that we are talking about. But I believe that America should actually go further than this, because these individuals weren't acting on their own. They may have received the instruction right from the top of the party. And so if America and other powers want to be serious and making Nigerians really believe that, yes, they support democratic developments in Nigeria, they should go the whole hog.
Ezewuike, that would be a Herculean task, because how would, the submission is great, no doubt, but how would you go about investigating who gave what order for the behavior of adult men in a democratic process?
Sorry, the audio was so poor, I didn't quite get the questions, Felicity.
Okay, so I was just saying your submission is great about going to the very top to find who is giving the orders, but I'm saying in real terms, how would you go about, even America, to investigate who these orders are coming from for grown men to behave the way, I mean, from what we can gather, the reasons that this ban are coming. Some of them were caught on video saying all kinds of things. Would you hold someone else responsible for the action of an adult man in a democracy like ours?
Well, the buck has to stop somewhere. And the buck stops with, the candidates whom these people are supporting. And yes, even though these, individuals who have now been singled out for the visa ban, unknown names, have not been given the option of hearing in terms of defending themselves, they do have means and ways of knowing who did what. And don't forget, some of these things happen in full glare of televisions, social media recordings, and so on and so forth. So they have enough information to enough materials to base a decision on. Now, yes, I agree with the point that you made about how it will affect the common man in Nigeria. I mean, in terms of believing that America really means it, but these are exactly the people that, they have singled out. That would have helped, but unfortunately, things just don't work that way. Because
all right. Okay, Ambassador, let me come to you. I'm still trying to find out how this will really, Nigerians will appreciate it. Some would say that the ban is not on ordinary Nigerians or poor Nigerians who are just focused on getting by and ranting on social media, but these are big figures who are financially stable, maybe have dual citizenship somewhere else, who can travel to other parts of the world. My question is really, what difference would, America is just one country. Yes, we understand their status around the world, but does it really have an impact when the individuals that are targeted have other options that they can explore?
Well, you need to look at it from a broader perspective. Again, you look at it, if you are banned, from the United States, how will the perception of the Canadian government, the United Kingdom, and some other G7 or world powers look at it? Again, somehow, they are going to keep an eye on those people. Don't forget, they have a way of circularizing all this information across or within the G7 or within the superpower nations. And then if you have any reason to go there, then there might be issues. They might not place ban on you, but you'll be on the watch list. So at the same time, it will also serve as deterrent to other big wigs to know that if, just like Mr. Ezewuike said, if there's someone at the top who perhaps initiated all of those problems that we see today politically, then others will take, they will take a leave from that experience of these few ones that are banned by the United States to avoid getting involved in future elections. Otherwise, they know the implication that at the end of the day, the folks that have the power at the top perhaps, who must have sent them to do this, will exonerate themselves when issues like this emanate. So the bigger picture is beyond that. Their children, their relatives who bear the same name with them will be psychologically or indirectly be affected by this ban. And like I said, someone like Mr. Ezewuike said, Nigerians know them. You can mention 1 or 2, 3, 4 states who are involved in these shenanigans that you can relate with the US will definitely ban. Their relatives, their associates, the commissioners and the other staff that work with them, they will also be on the watch list as long as they have something to do with them. It's not just only them. The name is mentioned, but the people who work with them, their families, and all the people I've mentioned initially will all be affected one way or the other if they apply for American visa or Canadian visa, UK visa, or any of the superpowers.
I'm not being a pessimist, but I keep playing it in my head because Nigerians, from what I have observed over the years, believe in what they see and what they, beyond what they hear. They want to see that some individuals are actually paying for crimes that they feel they have committed. So if you are outlining that these individuals will be facing this kind of punishment that might not just be restricted to them alone, how really, again, the same question I asked Mr. Ezewuike, would Nigerians feel the impact of this restriction and it will really, in real sense, serve as deterrent? Because if you say, some persons will say, okay, I can choose not to go to America. I want to go to America. But they might say they don't want to go to America, right? So how does it really serve as a deterrent? What if the person chooses? There are some notable figures that have come up to say they're not going anywhere other than staying in Nigeria. So again, how will Nigerians feel that this ban is actually to their benefit?
Honestly speaking, oh, sorry, is that for Mr. Ezewuike or for me?
No, it's for you, Ambassador.
Oh, thank you. Honestly speaking, I don't want to be state specific, but I have also at some point in time see the implication of this ban on few politicians, especially the serving government. Specifically, there was one of the governors that was mentioned at some point, I think sometimes last year, that was banned, from entering the United States. It affected the ease of doing business. The American companies that are supposed to come into the country to invest in that particular state couldn't just come for obvious reasons. I also know there are notable members of the cabinet of that particular governor that were denied visas because of what happened to the government, to the leadership. So it might not be in the public domain, but I tell you the truth that a good number of the citizens of the affected state can feel the impact in terms of foreign direct investment or in terms of some other opportunities that may come to the state. The only area I feel pain is perhaps where it affects the common man, the kind of opportunities that can come into the country or into that particular subnational that can enable some kind of development from the bottom, from the bottom of the pyramid to the top may not happen. And if it doesn't happen, then the state is affected. But then people can feel the implication because they can't do business with the country. They can't do business with perhaps some of the other superpower countries. And then they just keep moving around, doing the same thing every day and not being able to attract the right investment that can drive or stimulate economic development in those states. So it will affect, and the common man knows. It's just that it's not there for the public consumption to see. But within the subnational, I tell you the truth, they are aware and they know the implications because I know of one or two states that have gone through that before and I know the implications of what happened to them. I just don't want to mention names, not to create unnecessary stuff because we are online here and anybody can read that. But I tell you for free that I know of a state, how it affected the FDI and the economic status of that state till now because of the ban that was placed on them in 2019.
All right, fair enough. I mean, you've even answered the question that I was going to ask about the restrictions because the statement was that it's visa restriction. So I was going to ask if it is just the restriction on entry and exit alone. But your explanation about the impact for those who go on to run for office, it's more widespread. Ezewuike, I want to come to you, sir, and with this last question. Okay, my director just spoke to me, so it interrupted my flow of thought. But I wanted to find out from you what kind of actions are you seeing? Did you see during the election that you think will get this ban from the U.S., basically? If you can sum that up in maybe 40 seconds, what kind of actions do you feel fall under this ban?
Well, I hope I heard you very well, but I'm going to answer based on the much that I heard. Well, I believe that the United States and other powers did what they could do to a large extent. For a start, they had boots on the ground by way of observers. Number two, they actually commissioned the high commissions and the embassies, consulates, and all of that to actually pass some very strong messages around about what action that America is going to take. Now, I know that a common man in Nigeria would prefer a situation where these people are named and actually brought to Eagle Square, perhaps, and given 12 flashes of the cane. But
that is never happening.
It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There are protocols to be followed. And those are the protocols that they have followed. And ultimately, I think their interest is that Nigeria becomes a real democracy rather than one where thuggery rules the day and people act with impunity and get away with them. Now, it doesn't end there. I believe that, the elections tribunal that is playing out now, the United States is watching very, very closely and see what role that people are playing, those that are inciting trouble, judges that, are not going to act according to the books. These are all being watched. Ultimately,
okay,
will say America is America, Nigeria is Nigeria. But you see, we live in a community of nations, and the time, if there was ever a time when people, just acted as an island, is gone and buried.
All right, Mr. Ezewuike, that's the much. Thank you very much for your submission. That's the much we can take on this segment of VSA. I thank you both very warmly for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you for having us.